Hi, my name is David Robillard. I'm president of Performa's Federal Programs Group. I'm very happy today to begin discussing how to coalesce diverse detention operations to adopt uniform facility standards. The success of a model is by keeping the analysis at a macro level so that the complexity does not begin to bog down or overwhelm the task force that you've brought together, which can lead to frustration from the participants and begin to affect the creative thought process. So starting globally at a macro level before drilling down into the micro level of detail is a philosophy that most prototype modeling workshops should adopt. The approach of problem solving at a macro level, in summary, does a number of things. It can minimize your time, resources, and investment dollar, and provide you with the right level of strategic decision making. It brings order and focus to this decision making process. And finally, it keeps your project participants engaged throughout the process. Let me try to articulate a little bit more about the difference between macro and micro analysis and its importance. As an example, during the modeling workshop, we are going to be challenged with identifying what we call the building blocks of the building. In other words, the administrative area, the processing and intake, medical, courts, the housing units themselves. Those are the big building blocks of the building. Now at that point we have a choice. We've defined the building blocks. We can either dive down into nth degree of detail of what's in each one of those, or we can challenge ourselves to develop the models in how these building blocks can be configured in a multitude of ways that are bringing advantages and disadvantages from a global perspective. Again, staying away from the micro, which we're not assured of the organization of the building. We want to make sure that's done first before we start breaking down into what the requirements of each one of those spaces or departments are. The problem with starting at the micro level or getting into the micro level discussions, it inhibits the thought process of developing the prototype model. Your task force is going to get so involved in the nth degree of detail of how inmates come in, how they're processed, where they go, versus is there an intake? And we want to define, is there an intake first and foremost before we get down to the detail. Not that that's not important, but there's a right time and place for it. And until we define whether there is an intake, we cannot move forward in developing the details of the process of the intake unit. I'd like to, at this point, give you an example of how well this process can work by actually using a real case study that has been employed by the Department of Homeland Security, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. And that's on the Batavia Federal Detention Facility, which is located near Buffalo, New York. It's one of the newest SPCs within DHS. Currently houses approximately 480 illegal immigrants, and it is viewed by many as a prototype that is well regarded within the agency. It was not always looked at that, and there were many challenges in getting this project to that point. And quite honestly, it was through the prototype development process that we've just talked about that this building has been built and surfaced around. The development of the facility endured a very rigorous development strategy. Again, it began by bringing a group of folks together that felt that the allocated funds for the project were not beneficial to the organization, operational and functional requirements of the new facility. The opinion on this building was very diverse, whether it did meet the organizational, operational, and functional requirements. Some felt it did, some felt it didn't. The approach that was taken was similar to what we've just explained, and that was first and foremost to outline a strategic planning process that brought a diverse group of opinions and experts together from across the country. Experts in administrative functions, processing functions, food service, intake, courts, housing, and these experts came to the table for one mission, and that was to challenge the model that was out there, to see if it would withstand the budgetary constraints that were placed on it, and to decide whether it was a product that could provide a mission of secure environment for illegal immigrants in this country. We began by, again, having an off-site workshop format. We selected an off-site location where disruptions were kept to a minimum. We kept our team focused and on task. We identified and selected a site that was in a central location, so all the participants coming from different locations of the country could get there at ease. We prepared the project participants by submitting to them a questionnaire that outlined the format for the 4-day workshop and brought these people together with a common cause, and that was to explore what was outlined for the building prototype. We conducted a 4-day workshop as outlined in our presentation here earlier, and we began with the development of the ingredients of the building. We actually went back to ground zero, if you will, step one of the process, and said to ourselves, if we were to develop a state-of-the-art prototype facility for illegal immigrants, what would the ingredients or the recipes contain? So we backed way up in the process. Once that was developed and decided, which took about 2 days, we began to evaluate, using that recipe, those ingredients, different alternative ways of structuring the building. We looked at different philosophical supervision techniques. We looked at different staffing models. We looked at different workflow models, adjacencies, and came up with approximately 7 different ways that you could configure this building. The net result was attached to each one of those models was a staffing plan, was a costing plan, a building construction plan. Each had advantages and disadvantages, and it was this group's mission and intent to use the analytical tools that gave them instant results of each decision to make a recommendation to the commissioner of INS at the time. Our group did make that recommendation. We selected one of the models that everyone felt met the criteria, the evaluation criteria that we established in the forefront of the project and that we were willing to endorse. The outcome was very successful. The outcome did mean that the building that was proposed and funds allocated did not meet the standards of INS and their expectations. The result was requesting additional funds from Congress, and that those funds were allocated after the rigor and due diligence of the study was presented to them. The net result is today is one of the outstanding facilities within the Department of Homeland Security and Immigration's Customs Enforcement. It has received the highest accolades, and it is truly a building that functions at an extreme high level, again based around its organization, its function, and its operation. In summary, we'd like to end by thanking you for joining us for this webinar, and